Yes. Join in. Very good afternoon to all of you. All right. Okay, guys. So, very good afternoon, good evening to all of you who have joined me. So, today we are looking into the part two of our discussion, which we started yesterday on the topic of early childhood language and development. So, we understood that early childhood is a critical part in every child's language development because it forms the foundation for any child to communicate. Correct? So, this is very important. So,
हमीदा का फोन आ रहा है, सो नंबर पर आया तो
language is
उठाओ।
also very helpful for us. And language plays a vital and a pivotal role in each of this particular stage. So when children are in this stage, say 0 to 6 years of age, they rapidly get that ability to understand any language, be it anything, not only language, anything that gets influenced by the environment. They also meet regularly different people, the way that they are able to interact with others, the experiences that they actually have it with the others, everything actually helps the children to work on it. So in today's class, we take it a little bit more further and we would see the key aspects of language development. It could be receptive language, it could be expressive language. Are there any non-verbal communications, or is it helping me to further read and write so that my literacy becomes much better? So as a teacher, as a parent, do you have any strategies to support the language development of a child? So these are again different milestones that you will be able to use in your preschools. It could be like, in case if you're interacting with a child, how an interactive conversation would help a child to develop language. If you're reading a book, will it have any advantages when you read a book aloud? When you're singing songs, does your singing songs contribute to the child's vocabulary? Okay. Or if the child is playing, do you encourage the child to play? As in, when the child is trying to explore and playing, are you also helping to speak, wherein you would promote the vocabulary expansion? Now, say, suppose in case if you're narrating a story, do you still foster to the child so that the pretend plays and story times will also help the children to work on their vocabulary expansion? So all these are somewhere helping us to provide a very rich environment. There are multiple things, but what you need to do as a teacher is like you need to figure it out. What do you figure it out? That is what we're going to see in this particular lesson. So we would further subdivide our lessons into multiple things. It could be the milestones, it could be the challenges, it could be the role of an educator and a parent, so that you would be able to take communication as a lifelong learning process. Okay. So we stopped at a particular area, but now we would be coming to this particular section wherein we are going to talk about the mental development during infancy. So what is mental development? It is nothing but how can you nurture the child's mental growth? This is what we need to understand. Now, say, suppose if the baby is born, how is a child's development in the first 2 months? First 2 months, they might be very quiet. If there are any objects that has been shown to them which is shining, they would be able to start to recognize. Now, say, suppose in case if you take any rattle right next to the child's ear and if you shake it, the child might still be able to hear there are multiple kinds of sounds that is actually coming. The child might nod their head to see from where the sound is actually coming. So this is all a good sign. If your baby is not responding to such a thing, then it is problematic, right? Then it is problematic that your child is not able to work, or the child is not showing a good sign. So this is the first milestone development for every parent that you need to understand. Within the first 2 months, if your baby is not able to identify, within 2 months, if your baby is not able to hear to the sounds that has been, heard half feet away, if your child is not responding either by moving the head to and fro, then there could be some kind of a mental developmental delay for the child. So you can note it down. So doctors will definitely give you a milestone chart. So you can take a look at that and you should be able to see and tick, yes, my baby is able to do it. All these are very, very important. At fourth month, what is it? At sixth month, what is it? At seventh and eighth and ninth, how it is. So in your questions, in case that they're asking you, what could be the mental developmental milestones during the child's infancy, you would be able to say this. 2 months, what you should be able to observe. When the baby is around 4 months, you give him any toy or anything, the child should be able to look at it at least. 6 months, he should be able to respond to that toy. Sometimes the child might also smile looking at the toy. This is important. Is he responding? When you smile at the baby, is the child responding to that particular smile? So there has to be some kind of a exchange of information between you and your baby. So that's at your 6th month. Now, what about my 8th month? If I give something, the child should be able to take that. Or if there is another baby who is trying to play something, the child should even be able to crawl and snatch that particular thing. Now, what if I take it back? The child should be able to weep. See, these are all important. These are all developmental. The child should know to cry. The child should cry. When the parent is being separated from the child, or the child is being separated from a parent when they're coming to school, it's a good thing that the child should cry. That means they understand that mother is being away from the child. So that's a good sign. If the child is disconnected totally from the world and is not able to show any emotions, that is a trigger for all of us that we need to be looking at. Correct? So this is how you would be able to see, is my baby responding to the toy? Is he trying to take the toy? If I'm snatching it away, does he show any emotion of he wants it back? Right? All this emotion should be built during the 8th month. At 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th, these motor skills will start to develop. Fine motor skills especially. If you're giving him any toy, maybe he would be able to play with it. If there is anything related to the lid, he should be able to open it and close it. He might be able to look at the mirror and he should be able to smile. So he look at the mental development. It's trying to become better and better every day. And the author has also given one more example. Now, say, suppose in case if I keep a bell on the table, the child can go there and he can pick that and he can actually ring the bell, right? So that means they have so much of stability. The finger muscles are becoming better and better, and the child knows if I'm holding this object firmly and if I'm shaking this to and fro, it can produce a sound. And the sound can be loud, the sound can be pleasant. Now that there is so much of processing of this information that the baby actually has to undergo. So that means, yes, the mental development is rightfully going really well. So what as parent you would understand over here is like, your child's IQ is also becoming better. Your language ability of the child is also becoming better and better. So what as parents you would do? You can start to draw the pictures. Okay, you can start to draw a circle and you can say, this is mama. And the baby might even say, draw another one. So you can say, this is papa, right? So slowly you're involving in making sentences so that, the child's intelligence becomes better and their language ability is also becoming better. So this is through picture. You are able to draw. Now, can I continue this until 4 years, 5 years? Definitely, yes. You can start from 10 months onwards to draw and you can show them spontaneously. Not only that, when the child is around 2 years and 3 years until 5 years, you can show them a lot of pictures. And every time that you show a picture, speak a lot of words on them. Speak a lot of words on them, like star. Okay, so you will receive a star when you're doing really good. Star, again, now you can see it in the sky. It shines very bright. You can start speaking a lot of things. So what happens here is like the child would be able to connect everything. Okay, with one single picture, the child should be able to write multiple words. The question over here is like, in case if I give you ball, they have to write only words. With words, the child should spontaneously make sentences. Okay, so this is how you would get into activities at your classes. You're not writing the entire sentences, but you're giving them the clue of what words can be used and how these sentences can be built up. Slowly, we are trying to move. Now, from infancy, you're moving towards childhood, right? So, we are moving towards the childhood. In the childhood also, until they birth till the ages of 7, there is a lot of development that actually happens. Now, how do you measure all of that? Now, say, suppose in case if I have a child who is 7 years of age, he should know the differences between airplane and a kite. See, both of them are flying in the sky. That does not mean that the kite and the aeroplane are same, isn't it? So they should know how big it is, what is the function, what is the mechanism. They should know the differences. Similarly, when they're learning about animals, they should know the differences between cow and buffalo. Can we name some differences between cow and buffalo?
Buffalo is always, we can see buffalo always in the black color. Cow may have different colors.
Okay.
The horns of the buffalo and the cow are different because the horns of the buffalo is curved and the cow should be more of the time it will be straight.
Correct. Yeah.
The nutrition value of the milk is different.
Correct.
Between the buffalo and the cow.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
You can talk about the lifespan. You can talk about the primary usage, right? So again, on the adaptation also. So usually the cows are adaptable to cooler climates. But the buffaloes, they cannot adapt to the cooler weather climates. They are suited for hot and humid environments. And you can talk about, you have spoken about the color. You can also talk about the hair, thicker coat of the hair that they actually have. And the physical appearance, like, they have the lighter to darker skin tones for the cows, and for buffaloes, usually we see darker skin tones. And what about their body? Physical appearance of cows could be slim body, and they could be more bulkier, right? You can talk about how the horns are smaller, curved for cows, and for buffaloes, it could be larger. And sometimes it is a crescent kind of a shaped horn, right? So you can give them the differences. Why I'm giving you this as an example. The child should be able to differentiate the similarity and the dissimilarity. The similarity is both of them, they give milk. Both of them are domestic animals. That's the similarity. But how different it is what they have to be able to differentiate. So this is all going to happen during the age of 7. If they're unable to do that, maybe they are slow learners. But as teachers and parents, what we need to do is don't jump into a wronger conclusion, but give them a little bit more of time so that they would get into more on reasoning part of it. So whenever you are working with activities in your class, your activity should include more of reasoning. The child should be able to give reasons out of it. So please mark this particular thing by age of 7 or 10. Anything that you give, they should be able to give you, yes, this is what it is going to be there, and they should be able to know. And as and when the teachers are able to ask questions, the children should be able to answer it. So never ask straightforward questions. Always twist the questions. Make sure your questions are asked in a very slightly difficult way. So the child will know how to answer it back. Okay. So this is all towards the age of 10 onwards. But again, coming down to what the psychologists suggest, there are multiple intelligence tests that you can recommend. And these days we have many tests. Like, for my son also, when he was too young, we did a fingerprint analysis when he was around 2.5 years or something. So this was all like around 15, 16 years back. So we did a fingerprint test, which gives you the intelligence part of it. What is his IQ? What is his EQ? What are his other levels of intelligence? And is he good at sports and other things? You should be able to get it. Just like how our fingerprints are so different, every child's intelligence levels will also be different. So when you give them these tests, you should be able to get a fair amount of utilization. So why do we encourage this? Some of the schools do have this. They would ask them to get this intelligence test much better. So few of them are against it, but few of them are like wanting to take it. Why is because when you give such tests as a parent, first of all, okay, think as a parent, you would know where your child's problems are much ahead of time, but just don't blindly believe it. But if you're encountering a situation like that, yes, it becomes easy for you because you already know your child might face this problem. So your diagnosis of the problem becomes easy. And you can immediately take guidance. You can go to an educationalist, take a guidance, or you can go to a therapist, take some guidance. Now, what happens there was like further from there, if your child is really good in something, you can classify. Oh, my son is able to do this because he has got the ability to do that. So I should be able to classify what my child is good at, where my child needs more guidance. As a parent, I would be in and out knowing about my child. So you can go and talk to the teacher also. So what happens there, every time, if a parent is knowing so good about the child and she's consistently taking the educational guidance from the teacher, if he lacks something, he goes to an expert and takes those occasional guidances and he finds out where the deficits are and he tries to fill that particular thing and he supports the child. So what happens indirectly, your child's mental development would go better every day because you know where there is a lack, and according to that is what you would be able to provide other kind of help for your child. So all these are very essential for you, especially on the diagnosis part of it. If there is a problem, it gives us a fair report so that the holistic development becomes much easier. But for teachers, it is still a problem. No matter what is being done and how much the parent is also given, also once they are into the school, every day you will find a lot of problems. Now, what are those educational problems that you would always see is like, see, you cannot rest assured, I've done this test, so my child will become successful in future. No. Okay, it is not that way. There has to be a gradual improvement. Suddenly, nothing would actually happen. So most of the parents, sometimes what happens is like, they would say that I have taken my child into this particular program. I'm not seeing any results. It needs time, right? Because there is so many things that is actually happening. It has to be gradual. It cannot be automatic. Now, right from the time, if you have not focused on the child's health or the physical development, how will it happen suddenly? If you have not introduced your child at all to go to ground and play, all of a sudden you ask him, you have to come first in the running race. There's a sports happening at your school and you have to win and you have to get the trophy. Is your child physically good enough? Can he run? Can he balance? Have you ever tried? As parents, when we keep telling that running is so easy, it looks so easy. But I realized, because I used to never run. So when my when my son was in a toddler class, they had given this running race for the parents. I could not run 400 meters. It was a double line. It was like a relay. I felt running is so difficult. And how everybody are running so easily. When I asked the other moms, how could you run so easily? And everybody had the same thing. I could not balance, but still I was like running up so that, I could win and my child would be so happy for that. But we realize how bad are we at our health. Sometimes we're not physically fit also. So when we as parents, we don't give a lot of attention and focus on the child's health, nothing would happen suddenly. Health is very important. Physical development for the child is very important. So teachers, even you at school, if you notice if your child is not bringing healthy food and not getting enough nutrients for them, it's going to definitely impact on their mental health. This is one of the things. So you have to be more patient over here, especially schools. The teachers will have different children, or I could say every child is so unique. So your experiences are also so different. But what is the outcome that you need to have? The child should be cooperative. The child should become independent. The child should have the ability to do everything on their own. They have to play properly, do all of that. So it's quite challenging. And at the same time, you should also focus on your learning ability also. But are you providing opportunities is something that you have to ask for yourself. When you are giving opportunities in such a way, it's going to give you a good foundation for your children. Okay, so this is what we definitely need to be working on. But what if there are children who are not getting an opportunity? Why they are not getting an opportunity? Because they don't go to schools. Okay, there could be multiple reasons why they are not going to schools, or do they stay with the adults, or adults are not supportive. We don't know about that. But what is very required for us is like, oh, they did not get an opportunity. That means even you cannot expect a sudden change, right, for their development. So it takes even more time. So that is the reason we always say opportunity of learning is more important. And who can give that opportunity if you actually have it? It is only a teacher. Earlier, teachers used to be authoritarians. We had the authority, like this is how it needs to be there. This is how the child should be there. and the child would have danced to the tunes of the teacher. But now the world has changed. Correct? So it has changed. It's entirely different now. So every school has improvised in much better way, and the teachers have better principles also. They are now looking towards the mental development of the child. They are towards the child's well-being. Most of the schools are doing this one-to-one kind of a thing. They're finding the best what the child is able to do. And from there is what they are building their curriculums. So as a teacher, your aim of education has to be on the maximization of the child's mental development. Okay, so you have to be more sympathetic, you have to be more guiding, right? Because the child is so dependent on you. So that becomes your primary responsibility. Okay, so it's not on the academic development, it is mental development. Okay, so that's the reason they always say, no, even if the child does not study, the child should be happy to come to school. Mental well-being, emotionally, the child is happier. The child is feeling safe there in the school. The child does not feel scared to come to school. The child can express anything to their teacher. And this is what our lesson should be there. So that means the teacher is never an authoritarian over here. She's always being sympathetic and she's guiding all her students. This is one thing. Okay. Now moving back to another topic, we are again coming back as a repetition. So I don't know why this chapter has a lot of repetitions, but yes, I cannot leave because it's in your paper. So they have mentioned, I don't know which page it is. They've given a lot of reasons in multiple notes. Why does the baby cry and what does every cry mean? If they're piercingly screaming and crying, they could have some pain. There could be a discomfort. Correct? So there's a physical pain or a physical discomfort. Okay, sometimes if the stomach is, paining, they are piercingly crying, abdomen is getting expanded, they're stiffening their legs. It could be because of colic, stomach ache. Correct? So you should definitely see a doctor immediately and you should be able to comfort the child as early as possible. This is all due to physical discomfort. But sometimes if the child is very tired and some discomfort, they don't cry loudly or they don't scream and cry, but it will be a low-pitched cry. Tiredness, they want to sleep, or they could have fever, or they want only the mother because of the sickness. Correct? Or they are sleepy, so they might be yawning when they're crying in a very low-pitched way. So this is related to illness, discomfort, tiredness, or they're feeling sleepy. Sometimes the child is very angry. Somebody took something or somebody had picked their toy or something. That could be because of angriness, they might howl. Okay, and sometimes they might be hungry. Okay, so they might also put their fingers into their mouth. That could also be one of the reasons. So these are different reasons why the baby might cry. Now, there are other kinds of things, other kinds of gestures that you can actually see is like, how does a child behave when the child is hungry? They might smack lips or they might stick their tongue out. When they're having cold, sneezing, trembling can actually happen. Correct? So you can go through this particular slide, which gives you about the different cries. When they don't want something, how do they push away? Okay, when they are displeased, they pout. So this is one of the exercise that you should be able to work on it. Now, what you need to understand as parents, now here the teachers don't play a role, it is about the parents. Now, this is one chapter which has got an integration of what is my parents' part, what is the teacher's part. This is one of the chapter which has 70% of what a parent will have to know about it. Okay, so whenever you have your orientations, probably you can share about all this. The baby cries, you should know the gesture. That's an early sign of communication. If the baby is not crying, it's a problem. So that means there is an analogy. From here, it becomes important for us to understand if certain things are not going well in the child's mind or brain, the child will not have easy way to understand. So that means, see, now say suppose in case, what I have to say, now I have to speak in a particular language. So when I have to speak in a particular language, there are multiple things. I have to know the letters of that language. I should know the words of the language and I should know the meaning of the language. So if I consider this language development as a sandwich, okay, just imagine this is a sandwich. I have to now take my top layer and my bottom layer. So my top layer is a receptive language. What is receptive language? Whatever I'm speaking to you, everybody is listening. Correct? You're listening. You're understanding. So that means the signals, that means whatever I speak, the signals are reaching your ears and it is sending the signal to your brain and you're able to process it and you're understanding. That's receptive language. Now, what is expressive language? You understood everything, but when I ask you a question, you would reply me back. That's expression. That's expressive. So these two are very important. Receptive language, expressive language. Now, between these two is what you have to observe. Okay? Between these two layers is something which is very important. And that is called your central language process. How do you observe this? To work on specially designed tests. Okay, these are basically for language disorder children. Now the teacher keeps telling in the class, I keep explaining to you, but still you don't understand. The teacher tried multiple ways, but still the child did not understand. Now the teacher is like, does this child have problem or does he not focus in my class? See, don't put a word like, you're not focusing, you're being very careless. No, we don't know why. What is happening to the child, we don't know. What is happening between these two layers, we don't know. The teacher is saying, the child is also listening, but we don't know whether he is understood or not. When I give the test paper, he is blank. When I ask him a question, he is blank. So that means something is missing in between these two layers. The central language process, something is wrong over there. Can you observe it directly? Difficult for you. That is when you send such children to get certain tests done. Okay? And then you will realize the child would have had a language disorder problem. Okay? It could be the problem with the sounds. It could be the problem with the reception. It could be the problem with the verbal recognitions or problem of expressing the languages. All these are very, very important. Okay? So anytime that I'm saying words, I should have to learn the meanings of it. So my vocabulary is good. When I have a good vocabulary, what is the next thing I have to do? I have to say a sentence, correct? So when I have to say a sentence, the sentence should have words in it. So when I'm building a sentence, it should follow a syntax. What is syntax? I have to use parts of speech, everything. So it has to be in a narrative structure. The structure should be good enough. I have to say, my name is Divya. That's the structure. I can't say Divya name is mine. It does not have a structure. So what is my syntax? I have to know where I have to put my noun, where I have to put, correct, pronoun. I should know how do I place everything. So that's the syntax. So the word will also have mechanics. It will have morphology. What is morphology? The word is nothing but morphology. And the sound in every word is called the phonology. So the word mechanics should also be good enough. The way I pronounce my words, the way the sound is being emitted. If I say cat, I should have three sounds. K, atter. So what's the word? Cat. That's my morphology. What are the sounds in the cat? K, at. That's the phonology, the sounds in every word. So when I'm trying to express my language, the child should have three things. He should know the vocabulary. He should know the word mechanics. He should know the sentence mechanics. Only then I can consider, okay, this boy is able to say something. If he's unable to do, there is a disconnect over there. Correct? Now we will again come back from the infants. Now say, suppose if I'm making a sound and a baby is there, an infant, I'm not taking an older child. The child does not know whether it is a good sound, pleasant sound, noisier sound, they don't know. So what happens is like when the sound is appealing, it's especially when we put those cradle, I have forgotten about the names of it. So what is that? When we have the pleasant sounds that we hang it to the cradle, the child would definitely have a peaceful sleep, right? So it is very pleasant for them. So those sounds like, they appeal much better. They like that sounds. And most frequently, they would respond to it also. But there are certain sounds which don't give them the pleasure. That's when they become very irritant. They don't want that. So what happens here, the child will start to pay a lot of attention to all these characteristics. So when the parent starts to recognize, oh, this is a very soothing sound my son or daughter is liking, the parent will also give more opportunities. And she will start to play such sounds for the child. And she will start to expose the child also to other more pleasurable or appealing sounds which are associated with the child's sensation or the child's auditory skills. Now, see, the child is able to sleep better. We sing lullabies, right? So they are getting exposed to different forms of sounds, and the child is able to recognize all of that. Now, this skill, the baby should get it right from the day that they're actually born. If they are responding to it, it's a good sign. It's a normal development. So until 3 months, the child will start recognizing all of this. This is very, very important, guys. You need to do. If somebody is not responding, it's a trigger. You should take your child to a pediatrician and get the first level check done. Follow it for few more words, a few more months. See the verbal recognition. If you're calling by the name, is the child recognizing you? Is he smiling back? All this is contributing to my language. Directly, indirectly, it's up to you. Now, what happens here is like, now what you can do, record your voice and play it. Just see if your child is able to connect to you. The child is able to identify you. This is all related to your sensory integration. You can play it somewhere else. Is the child able to see that side? Sound is coming from a different place. Okay, so this is all the progressive steps that you can actually check. I'm not saying you should check, but eventually when you're playing games, when you're doing that peekaboo game, when you're doing hide and seek, this is all related to the same. It's related to a concept, but again, we are trying to integrate it with our multiple senses. So all these are going to help me wherein I'm trying to work on my observation. As a parent, I am observing, I'm testing my little one to see whether his language is doing really very good, whether is he responding to the activity, whether his central process is functioning better or not. So this is again contributing to my language development. Slowly, the child is also growing. His vocalizations become better. He starts to babble. He recognizes syllables in every word, and they might get into the beginning sounds and all of that. So this is all going to be on a skill readiness for his speech. Okay. Now say suppose in case if I have babbling, children will not say only ma. Have you noticed some of the kids will keep saying ma, 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 ma. They keep doing that, right? So this is called reduplication of babbling. Again, it's an expressive language. We are trying to work on that. That's absolutely good. But sometimes what happens, they might combine varieties of syllables. Ma, ba, ga. We don't know what they were actually saying, but they might actually combine. I have my niece. She's 2 years and she's still not talking. But she started now babbling. Once she starts amama, no, she doesn't stop. She keeps saying amama, 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 amama until she finds another word. Then she says dada and she'll keep going dada, dada, dada 100 times until she finds another one. So is it a problem? I was a little surprised. See, it's very annoying sometimes. To hear the same word 50 times, 100 times, it's very annoying. So it is coming spontaneously to the child until she finds the next syllable. So I don't know what we need to call that particular thing. So I am also like waiting to ask somebody. If somebody knows on this particular thing, is it reduplicated? Because reduplication is only for few seconds, few minutes, few times, not 50 times. Until you find another syllable, it keeps going on. So this is also like, a situation where you need to see how the children are expressing themselves. And you can also see on the other thing. Now say, suppose this is a very beautiful thing, expression. They have done a small experiment over here. Even in your book, you can actually mark. Okay, so this is just a social cause experiment that they have done. And they were observing. So there was a baby. The baby was asleep in the pram. Okay. And the mother was just like rocking the baby. And the baby was in deep sleep. Suddenly what she observed was like the baby was smiling in the pram. And this was spontaneously, this was happening. And what the mother felt initially is like maybe the wind. The wind is actually like, it was blowing. And maybe because of that, the baby is smiling. After that, she closed the window and still the baby was smiling. Okay. So it could be that the mother was like, okay, maybe the baby had a dream. So what are all these? These are internal stimulus. Something within you, even you're sleeping, is making you to smile. Sometimes we don't know. If we put somebody to watch us on our sleep, maybe even we would have smiled. We don't know about it. But this was like, a mother was sitting there and she was watching. So we had no clear intention of what was affecting the child. Was it the environment? Was there any other internal stimulus? Now, what you would think a mother would do? Since the mother was just watching her baby, do you think the baby's smile would have influenced the mother? Now I'm smiling. So I can see Anita smiling. So Anita, I'm influencing Anita. Anita is smiling, so I'm getting influenced back. So this is the reaction, correct? So the mother was also like smiling, looking at the baby who smiled at her. So this was an external stimulus. Something happened. So in response to something, that response got carried away. So that's an external stimulus. And most of the time, this is important for us. Are the children responding to whatever expressions that you're giving is the next thing that you need to observe. Okay. Now, when you're working on the language development, you need to check on the components. As human beings, we definitely need to communicate. To communicate better, homes and schools play a lot of importance. Every time that you're working on the language development, make sure you speak well. No baby talks. The phonology has to be given very well. The morphology has to be given well. The sentences, the syntax of the sentences has to be correct. The semantics of the sentences has to be correct. The pragmatic ways that how you're going to say has to be correct. Only then your child is going to succeed very well in school and beyond. Okay? To work on these particular things, on the next segment, I want everybody to disconnect and connect me back.